All right, Bucks Nets. The reason that we are recording like an hour later than we normally do.
Trying to get these reps for the playoffs, I guess.
Hey man, we are down the stretch run. Time to start ramping up some things. We were on the Mike Budenholzer star minute plan throughout the regular season, 31, 32 minutes. Now it's time to ramp it up. Got to make sure it's there. So here we are. Anyway, 120 to 119 victory for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Nah, keep me in my rotation minutes.
Oh goodness. Do we want to just go broad takeaways?
Yeah, it was a fun game. It was a good game. We can just go back and forth a little bit. I salute to Milwaukee. Giannis is that guy.
He's different.
I think he is the MVP. I'm gonna say it out loud.
Oh.
It might be a little prisoner of the moment, but those two games against those two teams and what Milwaukee needed in those games, some pretty impressive stuff. And he is putting it all together. I like to point out the threes. Sure, he was 1 for 4, but he's making some timely ones. And again, the mindset as far as, hey, I want to take this now, as opposed to this is the only shot you're giving to me, so I'm going to try it, is different. I know people like to yell, oh, he's 30% and all this good stuff. He only has to make a couple. And if he can hit one and then still drive past you next 4 times, it's a little different. I just like to point that out. The other thing with Giannis is the passing, man. The passing, it's been an all-season thing. So anytime that you've tried the wall, it's an immediate pass. But when the Nets went to start to double him, he just really hurt them. Just picking them apart, hitting guys, and I thought that was very impressive. I'm impressed with Milwaukee. Brooklyn did a lot of good things too, but Milwaukee is just composure that they've showed, especially when healthy. It's not the prettiest. There's some scheme things we could talk about, but they know who they are. And they keep grinding away, and they get into that mode where, hey, we're going to guard, we're going to defend, we're going to make shots. You have to deal with us, deal with our guys. Like some of the defensive possessions they had in that game late against Brooklyn, it was just impressive rotations,
yeah,
and just activity and staying together. Like, to me, the big thing is they just never have felt rattled this year. They've never felt like they've struggled, they've lost, but it's never felt like, okay, we don't know who we are, which has been a Milwaukee problem for a while. So as they ramp up, as they stay healthy, I'm interested to see what this playoff run looks like.
I'm with you. Before I get into my whole spiel, I didn't see your tweet on the timeline, so you may have tweeted. I just hadn't seen it. How did you feel about the Chris Middleton ejection? Was that the right call for you?
I think once you get to the defensiveless player aspect of it, probably.
Okay.
I thought it was an unnecessary play just with the length. I know people will say, well, Bruce Brown probably shouldn't have slowed down. But I mean, once you grab a guy's arm midair and there's no way for them to land, it gets tricky. So I understood why they went that way. I thought it was just a hard foul, hard attempt, but it was a hard landing. And when that math adds up, you got to go.
Okay. I got you. I found myself
saved you from a mid-performance.
1, that's a good shot. 1A, I wish he took more good shots. 3, it was not a great performance for Chris Middleton. Wasn't a great performance for Jrue Holiday either, though he did pick things up on both ends in the second half, so I will give him the head nod there. I came away mostly impressed with what Brooklyn was doing. I really enjoyed the defensive energy. This is something that I've had questions about with Brooklyn for large portions of the season. And they brought it. Like, Milwaukee got out to their early run in the first quarter, and then after that, hands were active, hands were everywhere. Shout out to Andre Drummond, shout out to Bruce Brown. Milwaukee just couldn't complete passes on the interior for like a stretch from late first to the second quarter. They just couldn't do it the way that they were swarming around. Even when Brooklyn went small-ish, went 3 guards, Milwaukee tried to post up, help peeled over early, or you'd get timely doubles. But the way that they shrunk the floor and were able to get back out and contest on those corner threes that Milwaukee were able to generate. Like, I was really impressed with what they did. Kevin Durant was great all game long. Like, the shooting splits might not be great for him, but the way that he dictated the flow on both ends. he was unbothered when he was taking shots. The passing was very impressive for him as well, especially when Milwaukee tried to send two to the ball against him. He did well defensively, rotating and swarming all over the place, cleaning up messes, using his length to bother things, shrinking the floor in the passing lanes. It was a really good Brooklyn game. And Milwaukee somehow overcame all of that. And that starts with Giannis. Like you said, the passing was incredible. The drives, Brooklyn didn't have much of an answer. Consistently moved KD on drives, consistently moved Nick Claxton on drives, James Johnson. And he became a different dude in the fourth quarter and in that overtime. Because early on, like, he had some successful drives, but also a lot of turnovers. And again, this speaks to the activity level that Brooklyn's defense had, getting a lot of strips and deflections. But once he calmed down, they didn't have an answer for him. And this is what I guess to zoom out, like, this is what I keep coming back to when I talk about, like, my confidence in Milwaukee in the Eastern Conference. It's just like, okay, who exactly defends this dude? In regards to the Brooklyn matchups, like, what do you do? Andre Drummond did his best. James Johnson did his best. KD did his best. And then you look at what Giannis finished with. And that's with the turnovers. Brooklyn objectively did good things against him tonight. And he still ended up with what he ended up with, and still made the timely three in the fourth, and still got to the line, got to the lane pretty much at will in the fourth quarter and overtime. Like, Giannis just brings me so much joy playing basketball. I was really impressed with that.
I mean, Giannis is performing like this and also giving us dad jokes in press conferences. It's been a banner year for Giannis. But I think, to your point, back to what you were talking about actually sticking on Milwaukee, Jrue Holiday made a lot of timely baskets.
He did.
The box score is not going to be kind to him, but he made a lot of timely baskets, which I think is important. And, this is the time of the year where you see the work of the regular season start to pay off, where Jrue had a little bit more room to operate, a little more aggressive. So there's a little bit more purpose behind what he's doing, as opposed to, hey, we need to get Jrue going. It feels like he's a part actively of it. Now, back to Brooklyn, on your point, KD was great playmaking. I think anytime they tried to double, he was able to find cutters, two on the ball. He was able to exploit that. I would love for Brooklyn to be able to kind of hammer that home a little bit more, especially in the playoffs. If you have KD and teams don't want to put two on the ball, make them make decisions. Make it, one shooter in the corner, Kyrie in the corner, Patty Mills in the corner, not Bruce Brown. No disrespect, but if you're going to have your lineups balanced, you got to use your offensive strengths when you can. But I think you can understand, and this is a night where you understood why Steve Nash has been preaching defense all year, because that's going to allow what they can do on the other end to shine. I thought they gave the effort, whether it was switching, rotating. KD really helps a lot as far as helping on the weak side. I think Andre Drummond held his own at times defensively. We don't give him enough respect for his ability to get deflections and pick and roll against guards in a drop. I think the Seth Curry thing is going to be interesting for me. It feels like there's going to be a target on him. But Claxton, I thought, gave you energy, gave you activity. And I think you were able to score, weren't able to sustain at times, but that's part of what Milwaukee does. Like, hey, we're going to defend our tails off. And that's the toughest part about Milwaukee. It's tough to beat them because you've got to make Jrue and or Chris struggle, but also continue to score on the other end to make that have an impact. Because if not, you have the moments where Giannis starts the fourth quarter, grabs a hold of the game, he sits, maybe you take it back, then he comes back. So, it's interesting. But fun stuff. Thumbs up for both sides. I think I can't say it every game, but I want to see a series. I want to see every series. Like, I think the Eastern Conference second round is going to be insane.
Their entire slate playing up to the first. I just want to see the East. Is kind of where I'm at, honestly. A lot of fun, man. A lot of fun. Wes Matthews as the PJ Tucker facsimile. How are we feeling about that right now?
I think we slept on what West can do a little bit. I still love what he brings to the table. Even if it's 2022, he's going to give you that defense. He can guard the matchups and give you a little bit more spacing. Doesn't need the ball. Probably not as much rebounding, but I think it helps those small lineups that I was worried about pop. Now, you need Pat to get going again for it to really work, because there seems to also be teams looking and saying, Grayson Allen, hey, come on up here. We saw Philly do it. We saw Brooklyn do it. Bucks don't want to give that switch. If you're going to be, we've seen what happens to Milwaukee when they have the guard, we don't know what to do issue. They seem to be putting two on the ball, which is fine until it's not. Another interesting part about that Brooklyn game, since I'm excited about it, we saw Milwaukee try and do the trick where they wanted to keep Portis on the floor, which Brook Lopez was right there anyways. It's only, the house that Brook built. But usually, hey, we keep Portis on the floor. We put Giannis on the 5. That way Portis can live and survive. The problem is Giannis was on Drummond, but Portis was on Bruce Brown. And Bruce Brown is just as good in pick and roll. So it was like, nice try. Come on up here, big guy.
Yeah, like that got a little bit funky. Milwaukee won, so like there's only so much you can say. But I mean, this is a podcast that talks about process more than results, I feel like. So we're in the moment, did you agree with Bobby Portis closing that out over Brook Lopez?
I saw the idea behind it, but I think Brooks should have probably gotten a run, in my opinion. I don't know if they thought he was just too far gone, wasn't loose enough, or they wanted to let Bobby shine a little bit, try and get him going. But I think it would have been a good opportunity to let Brook have that time. Would have had a little bit more consistency defensively. Maybe they didn't want to. Maybe they wanted more activity against KD and pick and roll. Not that Brook can't get to the level, but Bobby will. So I'm trying to think out loud. They might question about the rebounding, but I think they felt okay with what they had on both ends and may have just been hoping, okay, I think Bobby can live more in another matchup if we have Giannis out there than Brook, and just wanted to maybe protect him in that way. And that's just a thought process. It's not a defense. Stop playing the results, folks. Sometimes you got to dive into these things mentally and think about why things happen as opposed to just saying things happened.
The hashtag is Big Mad?
It is.
Okay. I'll let you have it. You can add that to your bingo cards, Dunkers. There we go. I was a little confused in the moment, at least late, when it felt like Andre Drummond and it just felt like Brooklyn in general were getting a bunch of offensive rebounds late in that game. I was like, it might be worth giving Brook a run, especially since Bobby Portis isn't having the night where he's knocking down 3 or 4 threes. But then I also think back to that first half, specifically that second quarter from Brook Lopez, where missed the hook, missed the push shot, missed some threes, very short. And it's like, okay, he has looked good defensively. We've seen him in the drop. We've also seen him play to the level and contain and then drop back and look fine. The defense, I don't feel like was an issue. But they didn't really get anything from him offensively. And it wasn't like they were running a bunch of pick and roll with him either. And so from there, I'm like, okay, I understand why you go Bobby over Brook. And zooming out, we talked about Brook a little bit, but I do wonder how he's going to fit into this offense. Like, not that he has to learn the offense, but like, what do they want his preferred role to be? And this is a question that we asked during the last postseason. Like, what exactly does Milwaukee want from Brook? Do they want him as the spacer? Do they want to use him as the occasional post guy? And so I want to see how that question gets answered as we get closer to the postseason this year.